Okay, hi everyone, this is Micah, and today I'll give you a quick rundown of how to use Adobe InDesign. This tutorial is built for anyone that has zero experience in InDesign and wants to learn about how they can use it to work on the yearbook and other things if they want. So first off, when you open InDesign, this is the screen that you will get as of 2021. It might be a little bit different if you are in a newer version, but there shouldn't be too much change that you need to worry about. The first thing you'd probably want to do is create a new document. How you would do that is by clicking on this create new button at the left. A lot of options will pop up here. These are different dimensions for the height and width of a file you want to create. I don't usually use picas, I use inches because it's just easier to visualize how big your final product is going to be when it's printed out. In Yearbook, you'll probably be given a template with an already chosen dimension, so you probably don't have to worry about that too much. The columns, margins, bleed, they're all lines that can guide you, and they're basically grid lines that can guide you to make sure your items are aligned properly and it just looks cohesive and put together. But this will probably also be covered by the template given to you by the Yearbook chiefs. With that being said, we will create a document. I'll probably create just a standard 8.5 by 11. This is the height of a normal piece of paper, American letter. And I'll use the default settings. This was a margin that we chose earlier. When you first look at it, it seems like there are a lot of things that you can do, a lot of buttons, but it's pretty well organized, and most of it you probably won't use anyways. Okay, so before we actually create anything on this file, I'm just going to show you how everything is organized. So basically, everything is organized in these little panels that you can actually drag out, but I'm just going to leave it as the default by dragging them back in. And if you click on this window option up here, assuming you're using a Mac, these are all the available panels that you can pull up and get more options to work with. Say you wanted more control over your colors, you can go to window color, and you can choose colors in different ways. Or say you wanted to pull up the pages option. This one's already pulled up in the default. You can add pages, remove pages. I can show you that later. And if you ever find that things are missing or things are all messed up and disorganized, you can go to Window, Workspaces, and just go back to Essentials or Essentials Classic. And that should bring you back to the way things were. Anyways, and this left area is the Toolbar panel. There are a lot of different tools that can do a variety of things. Your most important panel is probably the Properties panel over here. It's pulled up to the right by default. It has a lot of things, like you can change the document width even after you created it. Say I wanted it to be a square instead, then it just makes it a square, 11 by 11, but I'll leave it back at 8.5. Facing pages means you'll have pages stacked left and right next to each other like a book. This should be on by default with the yearbook template, but turning it off just means you have individual pages instead. Probably better for PDFs. Margins, that's this box. Usually you want to keep all your design elements inside this margin, so nothing's like stranded outside. And it looks pretty bad when it's all the way to the edge. And you can click on this to get a grid. Click on this to get these rulers on the side where you can measure how long things are. What else? That's pretty much it for the Properties panel. So now I'll go over this Pages panel. You click on Pages over here. As usual, if you don't see it, go to Windows and then Pages, and you should see this sort of area. If you want to add a page to this, just click on this plus sign. It's pretty self-explanatory. Facing pages means, like I said before, facing pages means that these two are stacked up against each other. You can add as many as you want. You might see this A master thing. It's pretty interesting. Let's say you wanted to have an element that repeats on every single page. So you could double click on this A master and you'll go into this sort of new document and make your own template, sort of. How that would work is, let's say I wanted a blue box at the bottom of every single left page. Then I would do this. I would click back into these normal pages, and boom, all these pages have the blue box. I can't move or edit this blue box unless I double click on A master and then move it around, and then it edits it for all of them. The Chiefs might have some sort of design on the A master, like the page number area, but you probably don't have to worry about that too much either. And now I'll teach you a few shortcuts that are pretty handy. So let's say I wanted to get rid of these margins because I have a lot of stuff on the page and I think it sort of messes with my vision and it makes things too messy. Okay, so what I would do is click Command semicolon. Command semicolon gets rid of all the margins and guides. To create a guide, you can drag from this ruler and make a line like that. So maybe I was trying to align this text to this rectangle. I could use a guide to do that, and then I could just do Command semicolon and then hide it. Then I click it again and then it comes back. Okay. Another thing that is sort of like a guide, but it's more general. You can do Command comma, and that pulls up this whole grid thing. So maybe I wanted to align this box exactly to the grid, and then move this one exactly 2 blocks to the right of it. I can use that grid, and as usual, Command semicolon and Command comma gets rid of that and enables it. Or a faster way to do it is if you just clicked W, that hides every single thing, even the bounding box. W is a key that I click on all the time. Every time I make a change, I'll click W to just see how it looks like without all the lines, because when you print it out, it's not going to have all these grid lines, and you need to make sure it looks good and clean. So now we can go over the tool panel. You're probably wondering how they all work. So this tool is called the rectangle tool. You can reach it by clicking on M, as it shows in the parentheses. Everything shows the keyboard shortcut next to it. I have pretty much all of them memorized. So the easiest way is just to click on M, then you got a rectangle. Okay, you can build as many rectangles as you want. By default, you can resize them like this, but if you held Shift while you're dragging it out, it keeps the same dimensions if you wanted a square. In addition, if you held Alt or Option while you're dragging it out, it goes from the center. If you do Alt and Shift, then it goes from the center and from the middle, and proportionately. That makes sense. So maybe if I had a square here and I wanted another square in the middle of it, I could do Alt Shift, and then if I held space, it's another shortcut, then I can actually move it around, and then I can let go. Boom, it's in the middle. So the way you select things is also pretty important. This arrow is called the selection tool. It's usually the tool that's on by default. You click on V to get to it, and it selects whole objects like this. And there's another white arrow to the left of it. It's called the direct selection tool, and what's different about it is when you go into it, you can double click on a single edge and edit where it is. So if you wanted to build a complex shape, then you could use the direct selection tool. And then you want to move the entire object, click on V, and there you go. You can move the entire thing, scale it up, scale it down, all that stuff. Another way to create an object is with the pen tool. Shortcut is P. It's a little bit more complicated, but you can click around and create objects. If you held on it, you can get these curves. It's nice curves. It takes a bit of practice to get it right, but you probably won't be doing much of this in Yearbook because you'll mostly be working with images. But this is just a nice tool to have if you wanted to design something very unique. And now you might be wondering how to make these solid instead of just a line. And you can do this by going to this left area on the tools panel, and when you click on this switch thing, you swap the fill with the stroke, meaning this top box is what it's filled with, what this bounding box is filled with, and this outside box is what it's surrounded by. So right now there's no fill and there's a surrounding. Now there's no surrounding and a fill. Maybe I wanted a red surrounding line. Then I would make this stroke red, and you double click to change the color. A shortcut for switching is Shift X. Shift X switches the fill and the stroke. Not all of these tools are super useful. And for all of these tools, if you hold down on it, you get additional options. So under text, you get these type on a path tool. Under pencil, you get smooth tool, erase tool. Now we're moving on to one of the most important parts of creating a good spread, which is putting images in, because images are very important. So I'll pull up the margins again by doing Command semicolon. So this frame tool is sort of a placeholder for where you wanted to put your image. These are frames. Just think of them like picture frames that you'll put stuff in later. And I will show you how exactly to put an image in right now. So you go to File and then Place. Okay, let's say I want this picture of Connor in here, okay? I can click on Open and it lets me drag it out like this. Or another way I can do it is just directly go into it and drag this image that I want and put it inside the frame. And then it fills the frame exactly. And by clicking this double circle thing, it means I can move this image. I'm using my trackpad to zoom in and zoom out. You can also move it around. Left and right, use the arrow keys. Shift arrow makes the bigger changes. And yeah, that's pretty fit. And if I wanted to scale this entire frame, I can't just drag the corner because that just crops it basically. If I wanted to scale it, it's kind of weird. You have to hold Command and Shift while resizing it. I'm not sure why they built it like this, but yeah, that's how it works. So normal drag is a crop. Shift Command drag, that is scale. Click on the circle thing is move your image. Okay, that's it for images for now. Let's say I wanted to have some text right here. Okay, I'll fill it with placeholder text, okay? So this is some caption that I want to have next to this potential frame. You'll see there's a type panel at the left, there's a character panel here, and there's a paragraph panel. Paragraph panel is more useful for longer text, and you can do things like make it center aligned, right aligned, left aligned. There's also shortcuts for this. Shift Command L is left, Shift Command C is middle, Shift Command right R is right aligned. Okay, and something you might sometimes want to adjust is something called tracking. Tracking is the spacing between each of these letters. Some fonts might have really small tracking like this. If you see letters touching each other, then make sure you adjust the tracking. And to do this, it's pretty easy. You can go through to this panel, the VA thing, and then just change it like that. But I like to do Option left and right. Hold the Option key, left arrow, makes it smaller, that's really bad. Option right makes it bigger. I like to make sure it's very legible, especially smaller fonts like that. And if you wanted to change the up and down, the spacing between each line, I think it's called, leading. You can adjust it at the right in the paragraph panel, or do Option up and down. Option up, Option down. Make sure it has plenty of space and no letters are touching each other. There's some funky things you can do with this. You can make it like italicized. You can change the degrees. Maybe you wanted to push the letters up and that to be pushed down or something. I don't know, you can do some weird stuff. Clicking on this makes everything all caps. This underlines things, this crosses out things. Yeah, that's all you need to know. Oh, one more thing. You can also add strokes to images. So if I wanted a stroke outside of Connor's face, teal stroke, I can do that. And changing the stroke can be done in the stroke panel, and it's called the weight. The weight can be moved up and down, and that's what thickens it or thins it. Hopefully what I showed you helps you navigate the app better. Yeah, everything I covered here should be enough to get you through Yearbook, and if you have any questions, just ask the chiefs or ask the teachers or ask me if I'm available still. Yeah, that's pretty much it.